to another day at CCU. I actually brought out the microphone today, so you should be able to hear me pretty well. I've been thinking about a video that I've been wanting to do for a while, and it was a simple video on all of the different numberings of the Prodigy lineup. For example, all of the ones, all of the twos, all the threes, and so forth. So today what I did is I brought out everything that I have that is a 1 series. I have a couple of PA1s in different plastics. I have an A1, F1, a couple of F1s in different plastic, H1v2, and D1s, and I think that's every bit of it. I do not have an X1. So if anybody wants to donate, that would be awesome. But anyways, I want to kind of just let you know what's going on. You can see here out in front of me the basket in the far distance, and it's kind of hard to see, but the basket in the far distance is about 270 from where we stand. The trees out in the far distance, with the casting the shadows this morning, are around 370, 380. So I have different 1 series. For example, I have some 400, 400G, 750G, all in the D1 series. I have some, like I say, M1s. So as I go through, I want to kind of give you a lineup and show you what all of the 1 series look like. So I'm going to be trying to throw these low so that you can see them against the background out there and you won't lose them up in the sky. But starting out with the different ones, the first one I want to throw, and I've got it in a pile here, are PA1s. I have a 400G PA1, a 350G PA1, and a 200 PA1. This is the only 200 plastic that I have. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan. It kind of beats in a little bit too quickly, but it does have, you know, it has its benefits. So we'll start out with the 200 first. Yeah, basically dead straight. There's not a whole lot going on there with that. Next is the 350G. You can see I pulled over on it just a bit. It basically flies straight and has a little bit more glide, I think, than the 200. And then lastly is the 400G PA1. Oh yeah, there you can see when it reaches the apex of its flight, it begins to try to fight out. It's not as overstable as you would think it would be. For a PA1, you would think get up to its apex and then just dump out. But it doesn't do that, it just kind of falls left. Here is something that is very overstable, a 400G A1. Yeah, and you can see right out of my hand, it's trying to go left, it hits, it tries to skip. It's a pretty nasty disc. Next on the list, I have several M1s. 400G M1, 400, 750, that's brand new, never been thrown. 750 that I've thrown maybe 5 or 6 times, and then a Proto M1. So we'll start with the 400G. I like to throw my mid-ranges flat and hard. So you can see that one came out. It stood up on a little bit of hyzer, but it never really hyzered out. It just kind of slid real soft to the left. Here is a 400 M1. I've thrown this one maybe 1 round. Kind of the same thing as the 400G. It tries to stand up, but it never really does. It's not what you would expect from an overstable mid. Here is the 750 M1. Now this one does have stability. Well, here I say it has stability and then it flies straight. Normally it has stability. That could be me and not the disc. 750 M1, brand new, never been thrown. It has a little bit more stability. You can see it's trying to fight out a little bit more. And these are all going about the 250, 260 mark. I'm not throwing them terribly hard. I'm just trying to make sure I throw them basically the same. Lastly is the Proto M1. A little low. And it kind of has the same flight as the 750s. Well, you would think that the M1s were crazy overstable. They weren't. Now granted, I didn't throw them up very high, but I found out when I walked out there to pick the discs up that there's quite a bit of wind out there. I don't know if you can see the flags off in the distance. They're standing out sideways. So there's a pretty decent left to right hurting wind, which may have kept those discs from hyzering out like they should. I do have a very old, very beat up A2. I've featured it in a couple of other videos. That disc was basically sitting right where the 750 M1s were sitting. So for me, I like the A2 feel, so I'm gonna keep bagging it. Probably won't be bagging an M1, at least not for right now. For F1s, I have a 500 Kevin Jones F1, pretty new. I think I've thrown it maybe one round. And then a pretty beat in 400G F1. So I'm gonna start with it. Again, I'm trying to throw it pretty level, pretty flat, so you can see it against the backdrop. I pulled over on it just a bit. It does have a little fight and a little glide and a little skip down there at the end. That's out there somewhere around the 275 mark. 500 Kevin Jones F1. I'm expecting this one to have a lot more stability. It does. I threw it a little higher. I did not throw it any harder, but I threw it a little higher, and it kind of has more of that straight glide and then finish. The other one I did start on a little bit of ante, so it's kind of an unfair comparison. Next in the lineup are the H1s, or in my case, I don't have an H1, I have an H1v2, but I have 500 H1v2, a Cameron Cold Glazier H1v2 400 plastic. I had an older one that was kind of beat up. It's in the bottom of a lake now. And then their direct comparison, which are Duraflex Glow F model OS. So we'll start with the 400 H1v2. And as you can see, way more stability right out of my hand. That one may have been a touch nose up, but it does have a lot more stability. 500 H1v2. I threw that one flatter, a little harder. And it's probably, I'm guessing, about 30 feet longer than the F1s. Now we can get into the F model OSs. And yep, you can see that one went out there. That one's probably close to 310, 315. I threw it pretty hard, pretty low, and came over on it just a bit. Here's another F model OS. Try to throw it the same line as I did that 500 H1. Up, got it up in the air a little bit, but you can see it's a little longer than an H1v2. It has a little bit more glide. To me, it flies like a beat-in 500 H1v2. The 400 one that I have, the Cameron Cold Glazier one, I think I maybe have thrown it 3 times, so it's basically brand new. But those, if you're looking for an H1v2 flight with that hard finish, but you want a little bit more glide, check out the Duraflex Glow F model OS. All right, a few things I noticed when I went out there and picked those up. With the exception of the pink F model OS that went like 315. The rest of them were all within around 20 feet of each other. The H1v2s were the ones that were furthest to the left, so they had most stability. But it's almost like if you want H1v2 distance with not quite as hard of a finish, pick up a nice F1. If you want a little harder finish, pick up an H1v2, But if you want H1v2 shape flight with a little bit more glide in the mid-flight and you know, basically the same finish, pick up one of those Glow Duraflex F model OSs. Now comes the ones that I love the most. These are my babies, and I grabbed a bunch of them. These are my D1s. I probably won't throw them all because they're all kind of the same plastic. I have a 750, I have a 400 Spectrum, 400G Spectrum. I actually have a 400 Air D1 that is 150 grams. And like I said, a couple 400 Spectrum, 400G Spectrum. Some of them don't even have writing on them. This guy here is, some of them, they range in weight anywhere from high 160s to mid 170s. And I have a few ultra lightweight 400G D1s. These are in the 162, 163, 164 gram range. Plus some of the varsity stamp ones that are still available on the Prodigy website. Plus some Alden Harris D1s that have never been out of the bag, match and set. And some that I got years and years ago that I absolutely love. They're super chalky. 400 D1 that is 169, and a misprint, very chalky 400 D1 that is 172. So don't necessarily know that I'll throw them all. Some of them are valuable to me. They may not be valuable to anybody else, but they're valuable to me. But I do want to kind of give you an idea of some rough flights of some D1s. Plus I have some that are in my bag that I actually throw every day. All right, so we're going to start with those. I have a very domey 400 D1 that I picked up off Marshall Street, 174. It's extremely domey, so it kind of has more of a D3 feel, but with that, you know, solid D1 finish. As long as I don't try to overthrow this thing glides forever. You can see turn in the mid-flight, and it just kind of sits down and doesn't really do anything past that. That, I think, is partly because of the wind out there, but partly because of that dome, and it is pretty used. Here is a translucent 400 D1. This is one of my more overstable ones. I pulled it over just enough to get it to fly flat. It fought out of it and wound up going somewhere in the 300 range. The 172 400G D1, not really Spectrum, kind of Spectrum. Again, I pulled it over, it's going to fly out of frame. Oh my gosh. That thing is a bomb. That went out there like 370. Yeah, pull that one over. Got to go make sure I get that one. 750 GD1, very overstable. Put it on just a smidge of hyzer. It never came out of it. Held it pretty much the entire way, but got pretty good distance. Here are a pair of bottom stamped 400G Spectrum D1s. Both of them 173. You can see again, it's got a little pull over to it and it sits down. The Spectrum ones, here's the other one. The Spectrum ones I have found are soft, like understable soft. I'm gonna put this one on a bit of hyzer. Flips up, slides right, hits that tree off in the distance, and bounces out. That's probably around the 350 mark. Here's a couple of other ones. I think it's a 400 Spectrum that I got from 508 Dies. Yep, there you go again. You can see that turnover, but the immediate fight back out, and it's into the trees in the distance. Got to make sure I go pick up all those. One that I just got in the mail the other day, 400 D1. This is hopefully going to be a backup for the translucent one. Oh yeah. Throw it hard, throw it flat. It doesn't bother to try to turn right. It just goes straight and then finishes. And lastly, the 150 D1, 400 D1, 150 air. Woo, look at it turn over. That's almost a roller. Wow. The left to right wind is certainly not helping matters, but some of that could be me as well. And just for comparison's sake, here's a Glow Duraflex D Model OS. Kind of flies like those translucent 400 D1s. A little bit longer, maybe 20, 30 feet longer. All right, well, here's something interesting. I was telling you, I was hoping the translucent orange D1, 400 D1, would be a good backup replacement for this one. When I get out there, they're literally sitting 5 feet apart. So it's couldn't be better. Now I have some other D1s that I haven't thrown yet, and I want to kind of just throw them just to kind of see. They're probably never going to go in my bag, but I do want to give them at least a test flight. Here I have a couple of very lightweight 400G D1s. One is 163 and one is 164. I'll throw the 164 one. Again, 400G D1, 164 gram. Put it on some hyzer because that left to right wind is knocking them. And you can see it's low, but it flipped over and started sliding to the right, which is kind of what I expect. Here's the 163 one with a nice oil slick stamp. Yep. Stop. Yeah. It just kind of flips all the way over, which is kind of what I expect for a disc that is that lightweight and that soft. Here are a couple 400 D1s, 171 and 172 with the varsity stamps. Take a look and see what those look like flying. I pulled over on it, but as you can see, it's fighting back out and it has a good strong hard finish. Not a forward penetrating finish, just a finish. Here's the other. Up, let it go a little bit early, but again, it's fighting into that left to right wind pretty hard. Here are a couple of older 400 D1s. Like I say, this one is 169 400 D1, very chalky. This one is a 172 400 D1, very chalky. Oh wow, that thing flies great. Very overstable. Considering it's lightweight, it's pretty overstable. This is from probably 2018, 2019. Nope, that was the Archer, not the Arrow. I really pulled hard on it and it got in the wind and that was all she wrote. Lastly, and as you can tell, I'm almost winded. I'm very tired. A couple of Alden Harris D1s, both 174 400 D1s. I expect these to be very overstable, which is good because I got a pretty good headwind. Oh yeah, look at it fight that wind. It fought the wind and still went 310 feet. Here's the other. Again, I pulled over on it just to get it started. And 310, 315. So those are all of my 1 series discs. And hopefully you can see some of them are extremely overstable. Some of them are just stable, but some of them I've used for quite a while and they're kind of beat in. The new ones, like those, they still have some stability. You can see from the flags off in the distance that the left to right wind is real.